You're listening to the Building Stronger Agents podcast, where we interview the top solo agents, team leaders, and brokers across the country to see what makes them thrive in today's market and beyond. Welcome back to this episode of the Building Stronger Agents podcast. Today, we've got a young man in Salisbury, Maryland. His name's Doaty. I love having young agents on our show because I got into business at 19 years old, 34 years ago, and I didn't get a lot of help at the time. And just through effort and taking action and just not knowing how to fail, I was fortunate enough to be able to stay in the business all these years. And I love talking to young agents because there's a lot of people who come into our business and about 87% of them end up failing, according to the National Association of Realtors. So agents who can come in the business and follow the lead of other successful young agents are certainly going to have an upper hand. So Jay, welcome to the show, man. I really appreciate your being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Jay's in Salisbury, Maryland. He also services Southern Delaware. That's right, Southern
Yes.
Delaware. Yep. He got his license in 2016 when he was just 20 years old. He just turned 27. And I tell you what, man. For those who don't know you, tell us who you are, how you got in the business at 20 years old, and give us a quick overview of what your story is.
So it's actually an interesting, I don't think anyone plans to be an agent. Like, they don't dream about it necessarily in elementary school, right? But here's how it all unfolded. Long story short, background on me: grew up in Pennsylvania outside of Reading, PA. Went to school at Salisbury, played football there for a bit. And I grew up in a family business. Just to keep this short, things happened, and my dad called me one day. We were out of the will, and we no longer had that business through my step-grandmother, right? So following that, I think it was that happened Friday. I dropped out of school Monday because I knew I didn't want to go in corporate America. And I had already created a relationship in real estate locally with another team. And that's how I got started and was working in their internship program, and decided to just go full bore at that point, and really haven't looked back since then. And I really had a unique experience as I was coming into real estate because I was exposed to so much. I was working as an agent, but then they were really growing their property management side. So I was working on, the rentals and that. Simultaneously, we were growing out two other companies and leveraging the relationships I still had from college. We were creating a student housing arm. So we essentially worked as liaisons between the students and the other property managers. Oh. So that was, so we had that going on at the same time. And then also we had created a moving company. So I leveraged a lot of like athletes and stuff. They would work, we had like 80 people we would put in a group chat, and we leveraged the moving company off of the clients that we had from the team. So there were so many things that I had going on, but I was 20 years old, right? And
you're just hustling.
I wanted to hit the ground running, and that was my main focus. And I had dropped out, so I didn't have a choice. And I got exposed to so much. And as time went on, I ended up leaving that team with a few other people. And I think it was late 2018 is when we went and created our team with Keller Williams. And from there, end up getting ourselves to a point where we had 17 agents. I was running that with a co-team leader, and really we were just running at the wall, right? There's information that you can pull here and there, but we were doing the best we could to pull it all together. And this year is actually when I decided to leave the team and go solo with EXP for now. And, we operated in a sense with Keller Williams where we had our own mega agent office. So we were separate from the market center. And I found EXP was the most sense because I'm used to operating on my own anyway. And obviously EXP is going to take a lot less of our money, and I can reinvest it back into stock too, which has been very fruitful. Since I've been, with EXP, and I haven't even dove into a lot of the other sides of building out a team and getting your rev share in as well, which I'm excited to take on that aspect of it.
So you're a solo agent again, and you and I met each other through Facebook, I think, right?
I think originally it was, I think we were chatting, was it SmartZip maybe? That's how we originally
That's
connected.
right. Yeah. I reached out to you because they had given me your name as a reference. That's right. I forgot all about that. Yeah. I never ended up signing up for SmartZip.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're obviously a very deliberate and methodical guy, and you said you're on track to do about 10 million this year, which is really good. I mean, you're a young guy. That's a nice, profitable business, and you're only going to get bigger. But before you were just scratching out a living, you were just doing whatever you needed to do. And I know a lot of our conversations recently, you're trying to get things to be much more efficient so that you can have a better work-life balance. Isn't that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's other things that I wanted to really tackle and breaking, I was just running at the wall, so to speak, for a few years and never really took a step back and analyzed, what are some of the weaknesses that I have, not only from a business perspective, but just personally and the things I need to develop.
Right.
And that's when I really started to take a look at, all right, well, what were the processes that I was doing in my personal business as I was building the team out, because you are juggling a lot of different balls at once. And I started to break down how I was doing it. And then I over time just refined a daily checklist for myself. Right. And it's not just business side of stuff, but then also incorporating, what I do with fitness and health and just keeping everything moving forward each day.
So if you were talking to a buddy of yours that wanted to get into the real estate business, he's your age, and you're obviously not a fly by the seat of your pants guy. You seem pretty militant. That's probably a strong word, but and one of my weaknesses was I was almost too militant at times, right? And what I learned with networking and relationships, I know it was beneficial for me and why I needed to create a checklist. I could get hyper focused for a few hours and then keep more of the end of my day open, where I could be more spontaneous. And once let's talk a bit about this checklist. So at the end of the day, all we're talking about here is taking action and putting some walls around it to make sure that it gets done. Because too many of us, and I talk about this all the time with my own team, we spend a lot of time on busy work, but we don't spend very much time on business work. And the problem with the busy work is you run out of business when you're done with it. So this, you've talked to me before about this checklist. Let's get drill down on that. What are you actually doing on a daily basis? Yeah.
So that's a great point. And this is what I went through, that ebbs and flows too, like you mentioned, as far as, you get focused on your busy work and then you got to go like this with your business. What I found, and we'll dive more into the checklist here in a second, but the first thing I do is just in the morning, I'll look at my emails, I'll look through my text messages. Is there any potential fires that could come up, right? And generally what I found, if at the end of the day in real estate, if it's a true emergency, no one should be contacting us. They should be calling 911, plumber, electrician, whoever, right? Right. It's just only so much we can do. But with that said, if there's something that comes up, generally I can contact someone at the attorney or the lender, et cetera, start sending some quick messages out. They start working on things on the back end. I just kind of circle back and the issue really works itself out. So no, that doesn't happen every time. But what I found is sometimes just really taking a step back and seeing how you can pull the team together, so to speak, in a transaction, and things work themselves out.
You're exactly right. So I want to talk right now about
we'll get specific.
What does Jay Doaty's morning look like? What do you do specifically? What can other agents learn from you about getting things together so that so their day doesn't get out of control?
Yep. So first thing I do, and you'll see on my checklist, it actually starts out fitness and health is a main priority for me. So in the morning,
so you're into jiu-jitsu now, right?
Yeah. So that's another aspect in MMA, right? But we'll actually get into the fitness side of it. So I'll go either stretch, get a workout in, or I'll just sit in the sauna just to get moving in the morning. That helps me out. Then come back, and fortunately I live 2 minutes away from the facility that I go to, and everything's
helps
there, so it helps tremendously. But I'll typically, before I even leave, I'll look at email, see what else came in, at night, just to make sure I'm ahead of things. Once I get back, I look at my Google sheet, this is something I learned from Ricky Caruth. He always talks about going through a Google sheet, and this is how you can really keep your pipeline going. Obviously, I maintain my CRM, and I have a lot of people in there. But to break down the business more specifically, I have this Google sheet of just buyers and sellers, and I have investors, buyers, and sellers. And as long as I have 15 to 20 people that are actively looking to do something in 30 days, I know I can maintain that certain level of business that I want. Now, if I want more, if I want less, that number would change upon that. But that 15 to 20 will generally get you in that 10 million range in our market.
So really, really quickly, you have this Google sheet. Mm-hmm. I'm old school. I use a sheet of paper or I use a reminder on my phone.
Same concept.
But you're every time you talk to somebody that expresses a desire to move, you're adding them to that Google sheet.
Absolutely. And then, something falls off and like, oh, interest rates went up and they're not as serious, or whatever the reason may be.
Right.
Then I'll cycle them off and just, there's an art to that, but I check that every day, and then I'll check to see if there's any homes that came on the market or et cetera. Or if there's, other relationships I'll touch base with that are more off-market investors. I'll touch base with them once a week and see if there's anything that's coming up. But generally it takes me 20 to 30 minutes. Now, if I have more in-depth conversations, it can be 2 hours sometimes.
So you go through that sheet each day and make sure that you're touching everybody, not every day, but making sure that everyone on that sheet has heard from you. And in a minute, I want to get back to this. Obviously, the most important activity of our life as a realtor is to have people to put on the Google sheet.
Yep.
Because without that, so we're going to talk about the actions that you take to find these names to add to your Google sheet in a minute. But so once you've gone through that, once you've gone through your list, what are you doing then?
Yeah. So from there, that's when once that's done, I go through, my follow-up with everyone, check those two things off. Then I'm going right to Mojo Dialer. And right now I'm more focusing on my CRM because I went from one CRM to the next. So really trying to get everyone back on there. And I feel a phone call is going to be the best way.
Right.
And that for me, that's what's been working out, because it seems like after COVID, a lot of people and a lot of companies are sending out the text messages like that. We used to do really well with that in 2017, 2018. That game has completely changed.
It's kind of funny to hear a 27-year-old talking about making phone calls.
Yeah, it's, and you know what? It's the best thing. I would much rather do that. And I didn't always like making phone calls either.
My son's 26 and he's in the mortgage business, and he's heard me on the phones for years, and he much prefers getting someone on the phone. He doesn't like texting because he's always afraid he'll say the wrong thing or it'll be taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not a way to prospect.
Yeah, and there's some things that you can do, maybe just to get someone started, and then you can follow up with a phone call. But
exactly,
when you really want to get down and dirty with and really create a relationship, you got to get on the phone, or if you are going to send a text message, send a video text message, whether it's bomb or just regular iMessage.
All right, so you got your check, you got your follow-up done, and now you said you get on Mojo. For those who don't know what Mojo is, what is it?
It's a dialer system, so it's just a much more efficient system as far as following up. So that way you're not pulling your phone out and doing the hand dial thing and doing that.
Does this tie in with your CRM?
What's that? Yeah, it's tied
into the CRM. And you're using KV Core, you said now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. One thing I will say, KV Core is about a $500 program, and at eXp Realty, it's provided to all the agents free of charge. And the nice thing is, eXp doesn't own KV Core, unlike some of the other national brands where they own their own CRMs. And if you ever go to leave, it makes it really hard to get that data back.
Exactly. Or they will release it to you with a CSV file, but it doesn't matter.
They still have it.
Still have it. So
right. Okay. So now you're using KV Core. You're getting. You've done your follow up. You get Mojo. Are you just staying in touch right now with are your calls mainly around people that you know already? Or are you creating any?
Right now, that's been my main focus. But prior to that, I would do circle dialing around the neighborhood, especially like a just sold listing. That was something that I always had used.
Does Mojo give you that info?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. They have the neighborhood that you can select, and then you can dial around that. Going into this year, I didn't know, or about 2 years ago, I started to invest a lot of time with investor relationships,
Mm-hmm.
just in case the market really was going to change. Yeah. I wanted to have those relationships there because they would still be buying in a down market.
Yeah.
And that was something that I focused on and use them a lot now. I mean, I enjoy working with investor clients. Once you have that relationship built, I might have 3-4 hours in the transaction, and yeah, it's a lower price point, but that's it.
Yeah. So again, since you're trying to systematize the operations part of your business, is there a certain amount of time that you spend making these calls in the morning?
Yeah, so I do at least 50 dials a day, but
Okay.
and it just depends on that's like the absolute minimum. But like today, I just have this and another appointment. I'll likely hop on and do 100. And
these are all people from your CRM right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And where did these people come from?
They've come from all over. A lot of these are obviously people I had brought over, but we had Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads,
right,
farming leads from Mojo. That would be our top 3 of what's existing. Yeah. We had used like ZBuyer in the past and stuff like that too. But
at the end of the day, for those who are listening, I tell my people, follow up with old leads before you take new ones, because they become new leads. Old leads become new leads. If you jump back on and reignite the relationship and you reach back out and you haven't talked to them in a while, that's no different than getting a new lead, is it? And you're not paying for it again.
Well, it's funny, and this is so true, and Ricky Caruth always talks about it as well. He's like, you pay for Zillow, you pay all this money for a phone call.
Right.
Why aren't you just making the phone call in the beginning, right?
All it is getting in front of humans, and the Zillow leads, all a Zillow lead is a human being who's farther down the line, and they're more open to having a conversation because they have because they're looking to, they're far enough in the process where they actually want to see a house, and so they're expecting to have a conversation with a real estate agent, but getting someone at that point is very expensive. It's at least $500 now, through Zillow or any of these sources. We found that between $400 and $500 it costs to get someone like that. So you're better off just going through your database, and either, like you said, you either get Mojo and you start calling around houses and just introducing yourself, asking if you can help them, telling them about, think of an offer. You just sold a house in the neighborhood. And we just want to let you know about the price and the terms of the sale. That way, because everyone likes to know what their house is worth. And then getting their name and putting it into an email or into your database so that you can stay in touch with them.
Yeah, and of course, every neighbor wants to know what the house sells for next to them, right? So that.
Yeah, and it makes it easy. I mean, we've talked about this with other people on this show before, but it seems like all of the young agents that I've talked to that are doing well, every one of them is making phone calls right now. Mm-hmm. They're not trying. There's no easy fix. If you become lead dependent, then you end up having a transactional business. If you can create your own relationships by going out there and making free phone calls or staying in touch with people that's a much easier way to develop relationships so that you end up getting referrals and now business now and down the road.
Yep.
So you're making 50 dials. What are you trying to accomplish from those 50 dials? Do you think about that over the course of a week? Are you making 250 dials a week?
Yeah.
And how many conversations can you typically expect to get from those 50 dials?
In my experience, it varies from like 10 to 14% is the answer rate.
Okay. And then do you know what the percentage is of people that are okay with you putting them into your database to follow up? Is there a percentage there, or do you not track that?
Out of that, I don't have it specifically tracked, but just recalling, several sessions, I would say about a third to half of those will allow you to continue with that.
Nice. And how long have you been making calls like this, Jay?
Consistently, it's been about 5 months.
All right, cool. So now that
I would go in spurts, even when I was with the team, I would go in spurts. But when I was really on the mission of gaining the investor leads, I had a good 4 or 5 months and just developing those relationships. And then it fell off for a bit.
Now, when you don't fall off, because here I talk about this all the time as well. I compare prospecting to physical fitness. If you, and I've said this before, it's exactly the same process, because it takes, if you start working out today and you stick with it, it's going to feel hopeless. And I was talking to a guy the other day, his name's Asher Bell. He's in California, and he says prospecting is called working in the dark, because you don't feel like you're getting anything from it, which is no different than working out, right? At any given workout, you don't feel like you're getting any improvement from it. And at the beginning, it feels hopeless. And I've said this before as well, but once you stick with it, then you're going to have results.
Yeah, when it compounds.
Now that you're 5 months in, are you starting to see anything different than at the beginning? Like, what are you seeing now that you're 5 months in, making $50 a day?
I've definitely picked up more clients, and a lot of it was people in my database that I sold homes to a few years ago, or something happened, they referred a friend, etc. So I've just pretty much getting everyone, and it gave me an excuse after leaving the team, saying, "Hey, look, I did move over here. Just want to give you updates. Is there anything I can do to help?" Yeah, and that's been a great intro conversation. And now that getting this up and running on this side, I'm adding to that sheet of people that are, oh, you know what? We're not, this house isn't as suited as we want to be, or they're looking at the beach now.
Right.
They have a secondary home. They're looking at investment, whether it's long-term or short-term.
So if you were working out for 5 months, which I know you have been, because you're getting pretty massive, but you would be able to talk about specific changes in your head or in your body or in your strength. Can you give us some specific changes in your business from making 5 months worth of $50 a day? What is it like? What are some things that you didn't think would happen at the beginning of all this that are happening?
Just have a lot of the follow-ups that I've been doing. I'll just get messages out of the blue. Hey, I want to list this house, or I want to sell this, or I want to buy it. I've just that a lot more of consistent follow-up from the clients to me since I've been consistent with that prospecting. So
are you seeing, like, when you say out of the blue, like someone that you may have called 2 or 3 months ago is now reaching out to you?
Yep.
So you're starting to see the now business, the low-hanging fruit business from the efforts that you put into 3 months ago.
Yep.
Okay. And anyone listening to this, that is the gold in this, because most human beings, and I say this, I'm sounding like a broken record.
Sure. Because you definitely have to stick to it, because there is a lag time.
The lag time, again, I talk about this all the time. You go to the gym in January and you get frustrated because the parking lot's full, everybody's there, can't get in the shower, can't get on the machines. But by the second week in February, the place is a ghost town, because the vast majority of human beings can't stick with something more than 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And those of us that become good at sticking with good things, not bad things, but good things, and the compounding effect that we benefit from, i.e. making phone calls a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months ago that are now starting to spin off business. So now when you're making these calls today, you're already seeing results from the past. So you're not worried, you're not anxious about the success that you have from today's calls, because because your business is good from the calls you made in the past. And that's what makes you want to be in maintenance mode, right?
Yeah. And it's a lot easier, once the train gets moving, it's a lot easier to maintain it. But it's the old school trains. It took a lot for them to get moving, but once it's moving and running, you really don't want to stop. It feels weird to say, I don't want to call one day, because you're starting to, the momentum's there, you're seeing the benefits. So you just want to continue to be in that groove. And that's how the gym has become for me.
It's the same thing, dude. It's exactly the same thing.
I've been and that's what, I can compare that side of it, because I've lost a tremendous amount of weight in the last few years. I've lost about 70 pounds. So I'm 70 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Cause I remember you had some pictures on Facebook on your story about, you were getting pretty soggy.
Oh yeah.
Now you're jacked.
I've been all over the map. I was, what was I? I think when I was younger, I was a really skinny kid, could run like crazy. and then got bigger for football and just kept getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And then once I was done with that, I was like, well, crap, now I got to lose this. So it was just a journey of that. And now, not to get too sidetracked, yeah, I looked at areas where I knew I could improve. And this does actually tie into phone calls. Now that I've gotten involved into martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu, it's like I don't have a fear of getting on the phones now at all, because I've been doing it so much now mentally. My brain, when I have like initial fear or whatever that's happens, automatically my brain goes, well, you're not getting choked out. You're not an immediate threat. This doesn't matter, right? So
you're not going to get a shattered cheekbone from being on the phones.
Exactly. And then once you realize that, and if someone, the amount of times that someone is far less than 1% is someone actually angry with you on the phone.
Right.
And it's through the phone. It's not a real threat. So,
and I've seen you with a black eye. So what can be worse than that?
Yeah. And that I didn't even know I had it at the time. Right. Exactly. I got done training and they're like, what happened to your eye? I was like, oh, I didn't know.
You're like the realtor with the black eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that gives you some perspective, doesn't it, when it comes to making phone calls? They can't hurt you.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like I was like that type of training has just completely changed my life, and not just with calls, but even with clients, or like the stuff when I was, especially we're talking younger agents. You're first starting out, you get certain challenges that come up in a transaction, and you're getting all this anxiety, and you're hesitant to reach out to anyone. Again, naturally in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is happening. What can I do to address it? And I'm not even, if I'm looking at the emotion reader on my mind, before I go like this, now it's not even, I'm just staying flat, even keel and calm.
Exactly.
Because I know it's not a real threat, right? And that's an art too. I think a lot of younger agents, they get in the business, and even if they have some good success out of the gate, trying to manage those emotions with challenges in the transaction is difficult. And if you don't have the right mentors around you, it can be really tough to navigate.
And once you get busy, 87% of realtors don't see their 5-year anniversary. Okay. Yeah. 87%. And the only reason that is because their paychecks get too far apart and they have to get another job. It's not that they die. Their paychecks get too far apart and they have to get another job. And the only reason for that is because they weren't willing to take action and be consistent about it. And what got me going when I was, not to talk about me, but my story, when I was 19 and I got in the business, I sold 4 houses the first year, 17 the next. 17 sounds like a lot, but my average sale price was about 50 grand. So it was garbage. But I ended up buying a new car. Back then it was 20 grand, made the first house payment or car payment, missed the second one, went to my mom, asked her if she could help me out. It was $408.46. I'll take that payment to my grave. I'll know. 408.46. I made 17 grand that year. So you can see that was a struggle. Went to my mom, said, hey mom, can you help me this month? I got a check coming in next month. She goes, oh, I can't help you with your car payment. I have a car payment. So I immediately, psychologically, my safety net was gone. I ended up borrowing some money from my brother. I ended up getting 90-day late on my credit back then, 20 years old. And then I dug myself out of that, made $45,000 the second year, and then got into it with the IRS. I owed the IRS $5,000, so I had to get on a payment plan. So those two things, ruining my credit with a default, almost a defaulted car payment at 20 years old. I should have never bought the car, but it gave me the drive to never go back there. Then having to get on a payment plan with the IRS, what that did for me, I thought to myself, when I'm making phone calls, and I made phone calls every day, I called FSBOs, expires, up and down streets, because I had this like complete anxiety around not having a safety net. When my parents couldn't help me pay my bills, and I was engaged at that point, I figured it's way easier to make phone calls. The stress around making phone calls is less than having to deal with Pittsburgh National Bank calling me, asking me where they can come pick the car up.
Yeah, well, see, you use fear to your advantage to take action, because the fear of that side was greater than someone saying whatever on the phone, right? So
by the time I was 25, I sold 60 homes, got the Century 21 Centurion Award, and that was with no internet. And I just because I was always running away from those feelings of insecurity around owing the IRS money and being behind on a car payment. Those two little things.
How many phones did you dial with at a time? The reason I bring this up, there was an agent I met. He was out of the business in the 90s, but he was, old school. And he used to dial, I think, 3 phones at once, like the actual desk phones.
Yeah.
Like, he was out of Northern Virginia. He would make like 600 a day, which, I mean, that time.
I wasn't doing that. I was calling FSBOs, though. See, I would call for sale by owners and get appointments, and I was pretty effective at listing them. And that's how I got my foothold in this business. I didn't like knocking on doors. For me, convincing someone to list their house with me when they wanted to sell it themselves, that really kind of appealed to my competitive nature. I really liked that. But by the time I was 27 and we had our first kid, I got really soft too. I had man boobs and I was a mess because I worked out heavily when I was in my early 20s. And then I went to seed. I was like 180 pounds and just soft. So then I started running. So I went through all the same stuff because you feel immortal in your 20s. But I think real estate agents who get into the business in their 20s, if they realize very quickly that there's no easy way out, they can't spend their way to success. If they just get on the phone and develop relationships and have a system in place to nurture those relationships at least once a month or more often than that, they're never going to have to worry about making a living in this business.
And it's so much easier today too. Like all the work that you had to do before, or that other gentleman that I mentioned. I mean, you just go on a dial and it automatically dials for you.
Right.
And if you get a few lines going at once, the great news is you're back to back to back. So you don't even have the time in between for your anxiety to kick in. You're just making phone calls. Yeah, you're just on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And before you know it, an hour and a half goes by and you've already met where you want to be for the day. And that's the other thing I want to bring up as well. With these type of tests, it has to be process based and not performance. Because there's some days some people are going to be excited to give emails, etc., and they connect with you, and some days you're not. And that's part of it. But if you focused on, all right, because if you hit that, there's 50 dials, that was your choice. If you don't, it's your choice. There's no other external factors that are going to contribute to you doing it or not. So if you focus on that, it just builds momentum eventually. And I'm finally starting to see it.
And now you don't want to stop doing it. It's kind of like falling off the wagon. It's like putting all this work in to get mentally and physically strong and then backing off. It's like when my dad, I love my dad and we're very close. But I remember when he was on blood pressure medicine and he told me one day he was getting off the blood pressure medicine. I said, why? And he said, because my blood pressure is fine now. And I'm like, you bonehead, it's because of the medicine. Don't get off of it. That's what's causing it. Right. So it's like, it's like when you prospect and you feel like you can stop prospecting because you got enough business, but then the faucet starts slowly shutting off. So you want to stay on that wagon. Once you get there, you want to stay there.
Exactly. And it doesn't happen immediately, right? So it's not an immediate impact. So then that's why, just gradually starts to go like that, right? But yeah, it's definitely benefit. And like we obviously made a lot of comparisons to the gym. It's so ingrained for me, and I want to be so far removed from where I was. Like there's just no option of me going back the other way. I've recently I injured my shoulder about 3 weeks ago now. Luckily, it could have been way worse, and it healed way ahead of schedule. And just leveraging relationships I have with orthopedic doctors and stuff, they cut my recovery time pretty much in about 2 months, where it should have been 3 months. I'll be fully recovered, by the end of this week.
Oh, that's great news. So anything that is there anything else? Obviously, making phone calls. I know it's so boring. It's so boring, isn't it? I mean, being successful as a realtor, just talking to people and if you don't have enough of those, and talk to people you don't know until you know.
Another thing too, and I will be more consistent in this in the future because I will be adding it on, is utilizing social media. So you have to really develop your own flavor of what works best for you. Yeah. I noticed, and I focus more on Instagram versus Facebook. but it really depends on, because there's a lot of business that comes from Facebook too. You know, we've had conversations about that in the past too. But on Instagram, I focus more on, you know, obviously I'll share real estate content, educational, or just experiences that I've had. Now I incorporate a lot with fitness or MMA, and then just share different lifestyle stuff because I do live near the beach. People want to see that, and you know, the goal is to everything I do in my real life every day I share on social. So when you meet me, it's so
I already know who you are.
Yeah.
When I was talking to my buddy Asher, he's got 16. He's 33. He's got 16,000 followers on Instagram now, and he treats his life like a show. Like, so he's not. Before he was doing just real estate, but now he does a little, like 20% real estate. Photos with him and the kids. Him out walking neighborhoods and knocking on doors. He skateboards. He raps. He's got a ton of talents. But anyway, the point is he incorporates all of it, and he doesn't go heavy in one area or the other. He just pretty much does a well-rounded view of his life, and he gets most of his business from Instagram now.
Yeah, and I get a good amount of business from that too, because a lot of it is just, it's almost like a CRM in a way. You're constantly.
Oh, absolutely, it is.
You're constantly in front of them, and eventually, you know, they see something like, "Hey, you know, can you help me with this?"
Everyone he meets, he asks them, "Are they on Instagram or Facebook?"
Yeah.
And then he connects with them there, so he uses it as a CRM.
Yep. Yeah, it's a huge tool.
So is there anything you'd add to a newer agent so that they can obviously ramp up their success? Is there anything else they should be doing?
Yeah. I know for me is when I look back and what really causes a lot of anxiety for me is you kind of, when you're starting out, you're looking at the mountain, right? You're trying to climb everything at once. And if someone just told me to focus on one day, do your task one day at a time, things will happen, right? We try to overcomplicate everything. And that's why I found is everyone I've talked to, whether they're guys in special forces or the, you know, business leaders, just focus on one day at a time, one step at a time. And eventually, you know, you'll get there. But if you're looking at the mountain and staring at that and letting that anxiety and the fear and all that trickle in, you're just going to get to a point where you're not taking the action that you need to take.
100%, dude. Last thing I want to add, this has been very helpful. Since you've come to EXP and you're a young guy and you were at Keller Williams before, which is obviously an excellent company, any major differences that you've seen, anything that you would like tell other agents about if given the opportunity? Is there anything that you'd like to share there? How's it been for you?
The back end of everything is extremely efficient. I've utilized the TC services through EXP.
Transaction coordinator.
Yeah.
And you're using the ones that EXP offers?
Yeah, the ones and I know SkySlope has them now as well.
Okay.
But they've been great saving time within a transaction. And
okay, that's excellent.
The systems on the back end seem to be very smooth. I don't really spend much time, you know, as far as processing checks and those things. They handle a lot of that. So there's not a lot that I have to really worry about. And the another biggest thing that I've seen, and you've obviously chatted about this, everyone's financially incentivized to share information, obviously, with the structure and the business model of EXP. But everyone's very open to sharing information and really help out, which is great. And when I first started out with Long & Foster, everyone was close-knit, you know, outside of the team that I was on. Everyone else around me didn't want to share any information and was very guarded. Keller Williams, it was a little bit better, but you know, there was still, I would say it's right in between. And then with EXP, everyone that I've ever chatted with, whether they're in my upline or not, has been, you know, very open to share.
I've found that to be the case. I mean, I've only been at EXP for 10 months and I had my own company for a really long time. I was very skeptical about any of it. To shut my company down and come to another brokerage was a big deal for me. But once I saw the people here, I mean, EXP cost me no money. because the stock that I get back, and and the revenue share that I've gotten just in 10 months, I'm actually in the black. I mean, I'm actually working at the company for free.
Yeah, put it this way: I've made more from EXP than KEW, because I invested in EXP a few years ago.
Oh, you did?
So, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Separately. Yeah, so it's done pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the stocks are all down now in that whole real estate sector, but
well, just even prior to that, I mean, tech stocks have been, but still, I mean, I know they split a lot last year. Was it a 4-to-1 or 2-to-1 split?
I'm not sure.
But
is there anything else that stands out about EXP that you'd want to pass on, like the education or anything like that?
No, I mean, the education piece, I mean, and you had that. Keller Williams had it, but I felt like a lot of it was outdated. And now it's the ease of access of information within the agent center and EXP. Everyone that just wants to share, and they create content to share and share and share. There's endless things that you can pull from.
My team, I've got 4 on my team, and with EXPs, and again, I've only been with the company since September of 2021, so it's not. And I had my own company 21 years before that, and then I was at another company for 12 years before that. So this is a very new experience for me, and I'm much older than you. Obviously, I'm twice your age, but the fact that they have the 50 hours a week of education and coaching put on by other top agents, and the agents are incentivized because they're given stock awards for training. So that's genius. That's genius.
Another good point too. The people that they actually have educating you and teaching these courses
are in the business.
And are top producers.
Right.
It's not someone that's in a market center
or a guru
with business, and there's a few people that could just rehearse everything that Keller Williams talks about verbatim, right? But their sales didn't back it up. And so it gets to a certain point where, it really the rubber has to meet the road, or you just can't take that person serious.
Tina on my team right now is going through to be one of their certified relocation agents so that she gets relocation deals. Yeah. When we go to EXPCom, we're going to do the iBuyer program, which is express offers. So then you can start promoting that so that you can offer people cash offers. That's the part that I didn't even think about it, but having access through EXP World to be able to get in there and get help right away for agents that aren't at the company, they can't wrap their head around how quickly you can get information with this technology in this system.
Well, and it's already been built out, which is great. And they incentivize you to do it. I've been, having teams, the team that I started out with, he was very forward thinking and had a lot of foresight. Mm-hmm. So I was always building, we're not only the team, but we're building out these other ancillary companies. And it's a lot of work to do it. Right. But EXP's already done the hard work for you. And you can utilize these different tools that they have the system that you can easily hop on. If it's a tool that you can use in your toolbox for a client, it makes you much more resourceful. So you feel that, do you feel like you're able to work? Is it easier to work in this environment, for you to be more productive, or? Oh yeah, from the back end, like everything that you deal with on the back end from a brokerage just has been by far the most efficient system. Very cool. Yeah, I feel the same way, but everyone just thinks that we talk positively about it so that we can benefit financially. As I said to someone the other day, because they were like, these EXP agents, they're just always recruiting. It's like, I've never been recruited by a KW agent or a Remax agent or a Howard Hanna agent or a Long & Foster agent. They just kind of they just sell houses. But if you had EXP agents that weren't happy with the company, they're not going to try to attract their friends to the company just for the sake of it. They've got to be happy there too. They wouldn't, if they weren't excited about being part of the growth, then they're not, the desire to recruit is a byproduct of being happy at the organization, I think. Yep. It doesn't come from anything else, right? Exactly. All right, man.
Well, I'm glad you're having a great year. We're very fortunate to have you here with us. And I think a lot of agents, if they bottom line is, guys, you need to take action, be consistent about it. There's no easy way out. But if you do that, you're going to have more success than you ever thought you would.
Yeah, and just simplify things. And that's where that consistent action comes in. I struggled with that for a long time. And
so you just made it $50 a day.
Yeah, that's really, and maintaining that Google sheet, which I picked from Ricky Caruth. And
so if you keep a sheet with all your current clients on it, make 50 calls a day to keep that sheet full.
Yep.
That seems too easy, man.
Took a few years to figure that out, but
yeah, but you're only 27, man. You got 26 more years before my age, and I'm still active in the business. So think about how far ahead you're going to be.
Yep.
Listen, thanks for coming on here with us today, man. I really appreciate you.
Yep.
And everyone, thanks for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of content, a lot of gold out of Jay, and learn from his mistakes and his successes. Yep. All right, bud. You have a great day.
You too.
See ya. I hope you liked this episode of the Building Stronger Agents podcast. Please give us a review and share our show with your friends. We will continue to interview the very best in the business to see what makes them thrive in this market and beyond.